I want them to know the truth. I love truth. With those words, Barbra Streisand revealed more than just a desire to set the record straight. She opened the door to a legacy built on grit, talent, and relentless ambition. From a cramped Brooklyn apartment, fatherless and scraping by, a young girl with a voice too big for her surroundings dared to dream. That dream became a revolution. She didn't just rise to fame, she rewrote what it meant to be a star. Conquering Broadway, dominating Hollywood, shattering records on music charts, and commanding the world of real estate, Barbra didn't just make history, she owned it. Now, as the world reflects on all she's achieved, what brings her family to tears isn't just the immense fortune she leaves behind, it's the extraordinary life she fought to build, the myths she shattered, and the truth that still echoes in every note, every performance, and every memory. She's not just leaving behind a legacy, she's leaving behind a fortune that speaks to a lifetime of perseverance, talent, and transformation. Barbra Streisand's journey began not in luxury, but in hardship. Born on April 24, 1942, in Brooklyn, New York, right in the heart of World War II, she entered a world already marked by loss. Her father, Emanuel Streisand, passed away from a sudden head injury when Barbra was barely over a year old. From that moment, her mother, Diana, was left to raise Barbra and her older brother Sheldon alone in a modest apartment in Williamsburg. Neighbors quickly began to whisper about the little girl with no father and a voice that could stop time. At just 5 years old, Barbra began singing, and even then, it was clear something extraordinary lived in her lungs. Her mother, once a promising soprano herself, never pursued music professionally, but Barbra seemed destined to finish the song her mother never got to sing. Later, Diana remarried and gave Barbra a half-sister, Rosalind Kind. But despite the growing family, Barbra often felt the absence of something deeper, a missing piece that no voice, no applause, could quite replace. Barbra Streisand once reflected, "I didn't really like my life as a child. I thought, this can't be it." That quiet heartbreak lingered with her, even as fame and fortune surrounded her. The early loss of her father shaped much of who she became, not just as a performer, but as a person constantly searching for meaning, connection, and stability. Her father, an English teacher who once taught inmates at Elmira Prison, remained a vivid presence in her memory despite his absence. "You do anything to get that mother or father back," she once said, "but you can't." That emptiness followed her through childhood in Brooklyn, where life was anything but glamorous. After her father's death, her family barely scraped by, living in a cramped $40 a month apartment in Williamsburg. Barbra and her mother shared the same bed, while her brother slept on a foldaway cot in the same room. Later, they moved into public housing, which Barbra Riley nicknamed Hotsy Totsy. There was no luxury, just survival and imagination. She didn't even have a real doll, so she made one herself by filling a bottle with warm water, saying, "I swear it felt more like a real baby than some cold doll." Even in struggle, young Barbra found ways to nurture hope, and that spirit would one day carry her to greatness. Barbra also found out years later that she had been living with tinnitus since she was a child. It's a condition that causes ringing sounds in the ears, but she didn't know what it was at the time. She just kept going because she was still sad about losing her dad. She kept a copy of his book Tales from Shakespeare in her bedroom. In her 2023 memoir My Name is Barbra, she wrote, "Who knows, maybe he had bought it to remember him. Read to me dreams bigger than a Brooklyn apartment." Barbra Streisand did well in school and sang well. She went to Erasmus Hall High School in Brooklyn and was a good student there. She even met Neil Diamond, who would become a star, and he once said, "We were two poor kids who hung out in front of Erasmus High and smoked cigarettes." Even though they came from poor families, both had big dreams. Barbra was smart enough to graduate early and then decided to move to Manhattan to follow her dream of becoming an actress. However, her mother wasn't very supportive. She told her that she didn't look like movie stars and magazines and told her not to go into show business. That didn't stop Barbra. She worked as a phone operator and a clerk at a printing company to make money, but those jobs didn't last. She was fired, and acting auditions didn't go well either. She was turned down after. As a teenager, she started singing in small nightclubs around Greenwich Village. Her clothes were from thrift stores, but her voice stood out. Barbara's school didn't have acting classes, so she joined a local radio club. Once she got in, she dropped out because she was more interested in being accepted than staying in the group. Luckily, her school had a choral club where she could sing. Even then, her teacher didn't think her voice was anything special, but her mum did. She still believed in her and took Barbara to auditions when she was only 9 years old, including one at MGM. Even though she didn't get any roles, Barbara got experience. When she was a teen, she and her mum even recorded music together in a studio, showing that she was more than enough. Outside of school, Barbara started taking acting classes and loved them. In her memoir, she wrote, "I was like a sponge at this time, drinking everything in." She added, "Acting class was where I felt creative." One of her strangest memories was having to act like a chocolate chip cookie. It sounds silly, but it was a big deal for her. After that, another actor invited her to an audition at the actor's studio. He wasn't chosen, but the judges liked Barbara so much that they asked her to come back for a solo audition. She didn't get accepted, but that only made her more determined to do better. Things at home were still tough, especially with her mum. Their relationship became strained. Had a beautiful voice but never tried to become a singer. She was strict, which didn't always get along with Barbara's personality. When Barbara started performing at nightclubs, her mum went to see her but told her, "Your voice is very thin. You need eggs in your milk to make it stronger." Barbara said, "She didn't want me to get a swelled head. I sure didn't have a swelled head. She always felt like she had something to prove. I had to go out into the world and prove I was something and I would be remembered in some way," Barbara said in an interview in 2012. She also shared a painful moment with NPR. She said that her mother once got emotional during Christmas, saying things like, "Why aren't you giving me presents? I'm her mother, I'm her mum." That's when Barbara realized her mum was jealous of her success, which was tough to take. She also said, "From those hard early years, Barbra Streisand worked her way up step by step, song by song. Her life didn't start with fame or money. It started in a small Brooklyn apartment with one room, a foldaway cot, and a hot water bottle for a doll. But she dreamed big and proved she was always meant to shine." Her voice opened the doors to her career, which she began in the early 1960s. In her early years, she worked hard and dreamed big. When she signed with Columbia Records, she made sure she had full control over her music, even if it meant taking less money. That kind of courage followed her all the way through her career. In 1963, she released her first album, Barbra Streisand. She was only in her early 20s, but she already had a strong voice and a clear vision. She even chose the photo for the album cover, which showed her singing. There was a big moment when she was invited to perform for President John F. Kennedy at the White House Correspondents' Dinner that same year. The album was a big hit, won Album of the Year, and got her a Grammy nomination. Looking back, she once said, "We didn't have the time, budget, or technology to record an infinite number of tracks. Because of this," she said, "we had fewer decisions to make." That same year, Streisand had another big moment when she was no longer just a girl from Brooklyn. She was a rising star who performed for the most powerful man in America, but the road to the top wasn't easy. Soon, Barbara would make a surprising move that would change her life. She entered a talent show at a gay bar in Manhattan called The Lion and performed under the name Smyrna, which came from the name of a Greek city. The prize was $50 and a steak dinner, and she sang 2 songs. That small stage opened bigger doors, and she kept performing every week. A director named Arthur Laurent saw her perform at the Lion and later at a club called Bonsis. He offered her a part in a musical called I Can Get It For You Wholesale. The role was a hit, and people loved her. She quickly became a Broadway star. But it was the musical Funny Girl in 1964 that made her famous. Interestingly, she almost didn't get the part. The producers tried to cast Anne Braftoft and Carol Burnett first, but they said no. Barbara got her chance, and she seized it at the 2001 BAFTA Awards. When comedian Phyllis Diller talked about their early days together, she said, "Barbara used to open for me at Bonsa, so I thought I'd open for her tonight. That simple joke showed how far Streisand had come as her fame grew on stage. She then moved on to TV specials and then to the big screen. In 1963, Barbra married actor Elliot Gould, and soon after she signed a huge deal with CBS for $5 million over 10 years. That's when she started working on her first TV special, My Name is Barbra. Like with her music, she kept busy. CBS was worried when she said there would be no guest stars, just her, great songs, and great musicians. In one famous scene from the special, she sang, "I'm 5, while wearing pigtails, and the set was made to look like a playground. The show was a huge hit, and she won 5 Emmys and a Peabody Award. CBS loved it so much that they gave her 2 more specials after TV. It wasn't easy, especially as a woman, and Barbra once talked to Judy Garland about her problems. Garland told her about her own problems. Still, Streisand stayed strong. She made her movie debut in the 1968 version of Funny Girl. She didn't just act, she learned behind the scenes too. She watched the dailies with the director and shared her thoughts, even though women weren't seen as directors at the time. When it came to money, she stood her ground in The Way We Were. She was paid more than her co-star Robert Redford for the sequel, and she asked for an extra $400,000 to direct when the producer said no. That level of confidence was uncommon, especially among women in the business. Barbra kept breaking barriers. In the 1976 remake of A Star Is Born, she starred with Chris Christopherson, but she didn't just act, she also made sure that her contract gave her a share of the film's profits. At the time, this was something that only male actors did. Barbra's former agent Michael Oitt said she was tough as nails, and that she stood up for what she believed in with great honor, even when the movie was remade with Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper. Bradley Cooper Streisand told Gaga, "I told her to do it live," encouraging her to sing on set instead of lip-syncing. By the 1980s, Streisand was already a superstar, but she wasn't done yet. In 1983, she directed her first movie, Yentl, which was based on a story by Isaac Bashev. At first, she wanted to make it a black-and-white, non-musical movie, but to get it made, she had to sing in it, so she not only directed and starred in it, she also co-wrote and produced it. When she won the Golden Globe for Best Director, but wasn't nominated by the Directors Guild of America, she said, "Maybe in the next few years, with more women directing, they'll get used to us." After Yentl, she went back to her roots and started making Broadway-style music, but Columbia Records didn't want to take a chance because they thought that style of music wouldn't sell anymore. Barbra was shocked because she had given them 23 albums, won 7 Grammys, and made them millions, but now she had to fight to prove it. In her memoir, she wrote that it was kind of embarrassing, but she didn't give up. She asked Stephen Sondheim to rewrite one of his songs to tell her side of the story, and the two of them worked together to make a powerful song for the Broadway album. It paid off, the album was a hit, and Barbra won another Grammy for Best Female Pop Vocal Performance. At the same time, after the 1986 Chernobyl disaster, Barbra became more involved in politics. She started studying nuclear power and U.S. policies. Her friend Marilyn Bergman told her to use her fame to change things. In that year, she helped elect more liberal Democrats to the Senate, and she stayed involved for years. In 1992, she helped raise $1.5 million for Bill Clinton's presidential campaign, and when he won, she sang at his inauguration. In 1996, she helped raise nearly $4 million at another benefit, and she had been supporting many Democrats since the 1980s. In 1995, she spoke at Harvard about the right of artists to be politically active, and by the 1990s, her influence on the industry was undeniable. Without a doubt, she won the Grammy Legend Award in 1992 and the Lifetime Achievement Award 3 years later. Sony even named their famous scoring studio after her, and it was there that Gone with the Wind, The Wizard of Oz, and E.T. were recorded. At the opening of the studio, Sony's chairman said, "Her career and contributions to entertainment are without equal." Barbra replied, "It's an honor to have this famous scoring stage named after me." From small bars in New York to having her name on a Hollywood building, Barbra Streisand had a career full of firsts, and she did them in a way that was bold, smart, and impressive. Did you catch that? Know that Barbra Streisand has had a long and interesting love life. She has been married twice, the first time to actor Elliot Gould on September 13, 1963. After a few years of marriage, things started to go badly, and the couple announced they were divorcing. They split up in 1969 and were officially divorced in 1971. They had a son named Jason Gould, who later played Barbra's son in the movie The Prince of Tides. After her divorce, Barbra dated some famous men in 1969 and 1970. In 1973, she started dating John Peters, a hairdresser who later became a producer. They were together for almost 10 years, but broke up while filming Yentl in 1982. Streisand quietly dated director Michael Cimino in early 1983. They kept their relationship a secret. Cimino wanted her for a movie based on The Fountainhead, but it never came together. Later that same year, Barbra started dating Richard Baskin. He was the heir to Baskin-Robbins and also a composer. He wrote the lyrics to Here We Are at Last, on her 1984 album Emotion. They were together for 4 years and stayed friends even after they broke up. Baskin would often be seen with her at public events, but bigger names were still to come. Barbra Streisand was already a big star in the 1980s, and her love life was in the news. She dated actor Don Johnson in 1987, and the duet they recorded together, Till I Loved You, became one of her most romantic songs after Dawn. She dated Richard Gere and Clint Eastwood for short periods of time in 1983 and 1989, but these relationships didn't last long. From 1989 to 1991, Barbra was with composer James Newton Howard. She shocked everyone when she started dating tennis star Andre Agassi in 1992. Agassi was only 28 years old, but he didn't care what people thought. In his 2009 book, he wrote, "We agree that we're good for each other. Dating Barbra Streisand is like wearing hot lava." He said that the attention made the relationship feel daring and exciting. In the early to mid-1990s, Streisand was linked to a number of other famous men, such as news anchor Peter Jennings and actors Liam Neeson, Jon Voight, and Peter Weller. Some of these relationships were serious, while others didn't last long, but Barbra stayed focused on her career throughout them all. Then she met the man who would become her fairy tale husband, James Brolin, and they got married on July 1, 1998. It was her second marriage. Brolin already had 3 kids from previous marriages, including actor Josh Brolin. Barbra wanted the wedding to be secret, so only a few close friends knew about it. Actor John Travolta said, "After her mother Kelly and I were the first to know the big news." He added, "We got teary-eyed, and Barbra asked us to keep it a secret." On the big day, Barbra did everything she could to protect her privacy. She asked the florist to make special bouquets to block the view from outside windows. When the paparazzi showed up, loud music by White Zombie called Thunderous 65 was played through speakers to scare them away. It wasn't what you'd expect at a wedding, but it worked. There were a lot of famous people there, including Tom Hanks, Rita Wilson, Marlon Brando, and Quincy Jones. For Barbra to walk down the aisle, she didn't want the traditional, "Here comes the bride." Instead, she asked for a more personal version, saying, "I didn't like traditional wedding music. That night wasn't just a wedding, it was a moment filled with emotion, privacy and style. It was perfectly Barbra, and even her name tells a story. Her name, her words and her story. You see, Barbra wasn't always spelt that way. She was born Barbara but didn't like it. She refused to change her name because she didn't want a fake name like Joni Sands, so she just dropped the A. It's still Barbra, but it's different." She said it was her way of rebelling a little. "People also often get her last name wrong. It's not Streisand," she once said, "it's like sand on the beach." When Apple's Siri said it the wrong way, Barbra called CEO Tim Cook herself. Apple fixed it quickly. In November 2023, Barbra released something very personal, her memoir My Name is Barbra. It took her 10 years to write, and it wasn't just a simple celebrity book. It was deep, honest and full of the real Barbra. She told BBC News, "It was the only way to have some control over my existence." She added, "This is my legacy. I wrote my story. I don't have to do any more interviews after this." The book is 992 pages long, and Barbra didn't hire someone else to read the audiobook, she did it herself. It takes over 48 hours to listen to, but fans get extra stories and songs that didn't make it into the book. Her voice tells the story, and her music brings it to life with a love life full of surprises, a marriage built on trust, and a voice that never quit. Barbra Streisand made sure that her legacy would speak for itself, and now it does through her own words. Barbra's music career alone made her famous around the world. She sold over 150 million records, had several albums make it to the top 10, and won several Grammys. When she goes on tour, she sometimes makes $60 to $80 million, making her the highest-paid female artist in the world. But Barbra didn't just sing, she also acted, directed, and wrote. She worked hard, kept control of her image, and built something that very few artists have been able to do. Her story isn't just about fame, it's about leaving a lasting legacy, and part of that legacy lives in the home she built high above the California coast, her $100 million mansion. Barbra's main home is in Malibu's Point Dume area. This isn't just any mansion, it's a huge private compound worth about $100 million. She started buying land in the 1990s and built it up piece by piece. The compound has 3 large homes, the main house, which is 10,500 square feet and has 8 bedrooms, a 2,000 square foot house, and a 2,000 square foot house. Next door is another 6,000 square foot home. The property covers 3 acres and has 5 separate buildings, including a barn. According to people close to Barbra, she designed the whole place. Everything in the house, from the flowers in the garden to the staff who take care of it, is carefully chosen, and everything works like a well-oiled machine. She's the queen of her castle, and James is her king, one source said. The home has 8. There are 11 bedrooms, 11 bathrooms, a guest cottage, private chefs on call, a spa, massage therapists, and a full-time cleaning crew. The garden is a work of art, and Barbra often walks around the property to enjoy the view and plants. She has 12 gardeners, including a horticulturist and an arborist, who keep everything in perfect shape. It's not just a house, it's her world. And below that world is a mall with a collection of treasures. Most celebrities show off their walk-in closets or trophy rooms, but Barbra Streisand took things to a whole new level. She constructed her own personal mall underneath her Malibu domestic. The basement of her mansion has a tiny replica mall complete with fake storefronts, each one packed with her antiques, dolls and private treasures. There may be a gift store, a doll save, and even a phase devoted to all the costumes she wore in movies and on Degree. In a 2023 interview with Stephen Colbert, she took him on a tour of her mall. Giggling, she stated, "It's a bit tiny mall in case you need to mention." Whilst Colbert joked, approximately calling her doll Keep, "What's up Dolly?" she replied with a big chortle, "I did no longer." Barbra's love for gatherings started in the early 90s after journeying the White residence and being inspired through the historic furnishings. Due to the fact then she has accumulated valuable antiques and art. In fact, considered one of her donations to the Los Angeles County Museum of Art, a painting by John Singer Sargent turned into later valued at $20 million. Even though the full value of her collection isn't public, it is secure to say it provides a big amount to her normal net well worth. However, Barbra doesn't just accumulate, she gives return to a giving coronary heart at the back of the fame. You notice Barbra Streisand's fulfillment gave her extra than simply money, it gave her the energy to make a difference. She commenced the Streisand Basis in 1986, and considering that then it has donated over $16 million to causes like civil rights, women's problems and the surroundings. Through the years her live performances have raised any other $25 million for different groups. In 1984 she donated a constructing at Hebrew University in Jerusalem, naming it after her father. In 2006 she gave $1 million to Invoice Clinton's weather change efforts. She additionally created the Barbra Streisand Ladies' Heart Center at Cedars-Sinai, donating $10 million of her very own cash and supporting Boost some other $22 million. In 2009 she auctioned off 526 gadgets from her private series, the entirety from furnishings to film costumes, and gave all of the cash to her bassist. The most treasured piece became a painting by using Kees van Dongen. She didn't stop there. She seemed at a fundraising gala for Israeli infantrymen in 2011, and in 2020 she Gave Disney stocks to Gianna Floyd, the daughter of George Floyd. In 2022, Ukraine's President Vladimir Zelensky invited her to sign up for the UNID24 platform to elevate money for hospital therapy. Barbra helped acquire $240,000. She once said, "That is my legacy. I wrote my story. I don't need to do any greater interviews after this." And she supposed it. In November 2023 she released her long-awaited memoir My Call as Barbra. It took her 10 years to put in writing. The ebook is 992 pages lengthy and Barbra recorded the whole 48-hour audio ebook herself. It's packed with memories, song clips and information. Handiest she may want a percentage from a young lady in Brooklyn to a female, along with her personal citadel and personal mall. Barbra Streisand's story is extra than just reputation. It is approximately power, cause and a lifestyles lived exactly the manner she dreamed, and now Barbra Streisand will leave in the back of now not just a large fortune but a legacy of skills, power and motive for the generations that followed. You watched Barbra Streisand's legacy might be remembered more for her talent or her impact past the level. Percentage your mind in the feedback beneath and recall to hit like, subscribe and live tuned for extra extremely good tales from Hollywood's captivating history. See you subsequent time.